read the short version of the bio. My mother wrote the long one, and you'd be here well past the availability of the cupcakes in the back of the room. I want to thank John Forrester for contacting me and for the opportunity to be here today to represent Nestle Waters North America, my company, and talk a little bit about our story, talk a little bit about Nestle's story, and maybe even mess up the computer here. I had the opportunity to talk a little bit with Dr. Mark Smith at the beginning. I think you'll find some common ground on the topics that we both talk about: the importance of resource management, the importance of developing capacity and understanding in communities for their resources, and in developing governance and developing policy based on that input and based upon making sure that water is available for all, water is available for nature. My company, Nestle Waters, really began as a family of spring water companies, and you can't spend much time working with spring water without getting literally your feet wet and making sure that you're using your resources sustainably. We'll have a little chance to touch on that and then be happy to talk to you at the end. Another common denominator that I think that Dr. Smith and I, Mark and I both have, is that we start with a common premise. We acknowledge the same problem. With 7 billion people inhabiting this earth, over 1 billion lack access to water, and nearly a third lack that basic sanitation facilities. And less than 10 countries share 60% of the freshwater resources. From the Nestle perspective, and there are copies of a water management report that we put out in 2007 were available on the way in. This problem has not resulted merely from natural limitations of water supply or lack of financing or even appropriate technologies, but from profound failures in water governance. And whether that's globally in parts of India, where the water table is dropping, or the pumping of the Ogallala Aquifer, the largest in North America, which is being pumped at 14 times greater than it is being replenished. Water has no substitute. So the challenge for all of us working together, and certainly whether it's the policy that you all work on here on the Hill, or on behalf of your members of Congress and the Senate back at home, the challenge is how we respond. Let's talk a little bit about Nestle. Nestle, the world's largest food and beverage company, 480 factories in 86 countries, over 10,000 products, and over 1 billion products sold every day, all of which have a water footprint, all of which use water, and all of which have competitors and other products which do the same. Our company's breakdown is shown on this chart. I kind of operate in that 9.7% wedge, which is bottled water, just under 10% of Nestle's business. Nestle Waters itself is based in Paris. We're the world's largest bottled water manufacturer. And we operate throughout Nestle on a premise of creating shared value. And I want to mention this now because hopefully you'll see the themes, and not just what we produce, but how we do it. And essentially creating shared value means our economic activities must benefit the communities where we operate. That we know we need to create value for our shareholders, but also society at large through the products that we make, and again, through how we make them. And if you think of it as a pyramid based and rooted on a foundation of compliance, whether it's our principles of management, our codes of conduct, or in communication, are rooted in complying with the laws where we operate. Next is built on that is sustainability, which we apply to our whole business model. And this means not only do we care about safeguarding the natural resources that we use, but the durability of our products' benefits to society. At the top of the pyramid is creating shared value, which means in creating value for our company, again, we must create value for society. And at Nestle Waters, which aims to be the leading healthy hydration company, we believe that great value lies in health, in nutrition, water, and in rural development. And water management, as you can see, to steal a phrase, is a river that runs through our creating shared value model. It's just as an example of that. With agriculture being the largest user of water, our company, which has many agricultural partners, invested a great deal of opportunity of effort in attacking that area. And so an example with our agricultural suppliers is that the societal value of sharing our technical assistance with farmers, they're able to produce greater yields of higher crops using fewer resources. That helps the environment. It also helps their income. Rural communities gain from wider employment and economic development. There's a Nestle value, of course, that we acknowledge. Engaging with these communities that supply our commodities, we secure better raw materials at lower costs. The shared value is that access to superior raw materials by seeking to improve farmers' living standards and environmental practices and water usage. There's a middle. There is a share in that process. Our perspective on water use, the total worldwide fresh water use in the globe is, you can look at this as 4.2 billion liters, or 4.25 quadrillion liters. Agriculture, as I said, is the largest use, which is represented here in green. Then there is industrial use, which is at about 20%, domestic at about 10%. Nestle is in that purple cube altogether, and the breakout of the red coming out of there is Nestle Waters. Now with Nestle, what we sought to do is go about doing two things, and that is looking at our own water use within our four walls directly, but then also in working indirectly with our suppliers and throughout the value chain to work with the people who supply us to increase that impact more broadly. And we can't do it alone. I think any company would probably be foolish to try and waste the opportunity to bring others along, to learn, whether it's some other companies, learn about the impact that we're having. And so Nestle and Nestle Waters are involved in several different efforts to work closely with other producers and stakeholders. And one is the Sustainable Agriculture Initiative. Nestle is one of the founders. It now numbers 30 partners globally. And this initiative, along with other projects of our own, has kind of given us the opportunity to look beyond and have that direct, as I said, and that indirect impact. In addition, we're committed to the challenge of water sustainability throughout the world. In July of 2007, our chairman and 5 other world business leaders launched the CEO Water Mandate, a UN Global Compact project designed to help communities better manage water use. And this project reinforces setting water targets, best practices, and throughout the entire value chain of the organization, and encourages companies like ours to work with stakeholders, work with policymakers like you are and your bosses are, work with communities where we operate and live so that we can have the most and the strongest local impact on this global issue. And so, and these are a couple of charts which are also featured in this in the water report. Speaking now within our own within Nestle, we've had since 1998 increased food production volume by 76%, and at the same time we've been able to reduce our water withdrawals by 29%. And additionally, our objective for the next 5 years is to reduce water consumption per ton of product produced by 2 to 3% per year. And here are some of the other specific translations. We saved over 47 billion liters of water being consumed in our food operations, and 8 billion from the bottled water operations alone. And we've also had a savings, reduced impact on this. That last one is the wastewater generation as well. You can't just look about what your impact is in terms of what you're taking in the water that you're consuming, but also in the reduction of the wastewater and the impact that you're having from that as well. I'd like to, and there is, I urge you to take a look and grab, there's some copies of that water report for a little more information on it. I'm going to shift now a little more into my wheelhouse where I've been for the last 6 years, and that's with Nestle Waters North America. As I said, we began as a family of spring water brands. I live in Connecticut. My wife's family is up in Maine, and Poland Spring was the first in 1982, actually the company began as Perrier Group, importing Perrier into the United States in the 70s. And in 1982 acquired Coleman Spring. There were 35 employees. And we inherited with that acquisition some springs that had been in operation for hundreds of years. Now, according to the FDA, you can't call water spring water if the spring doesn't continue to flow naturally to the surface. And so we learned pretty darn fast about how to work to manage the resource, which involves really in working on policy. I kind of drop it into the 4 M's: to meter the water resources, to measure them, to manage them, and there's one more and I've totally forgotten. I think that's because I'm looking at cupcakes in the back of the room. Meter, map. Of course, you can't meter them unless you map. Map, measure, meter, and manage. And we look to do that. We do that very locally, where we are with the family of spring water brands, and also in the use of our Nestle Pure Life, which is a purified water brand. We have do our best to create shared value with Nestle Waters North America, with a rooting in both nature and health, producing helpful beverages and sustainable water resource management, and put it all together to provide helpful beverages with the lightest possible environmental footprint. Last year, I'm not sure what those little things are, but last year in October, we produced our first corporate citizenship report. We are not the first company to ever do so. We didn't do the best job doing so, but we wanted to stick a flag in the ground. We wanted to take a status report on where we stood as a company in terms of being a corporate citizen, in terms of the value and that shared value that we create. And we've come into really 6 commitments. And this is a report that was not just something we did internally, but it was also the product of discussion with many stakeholders. It has prompted even more discussion with stakeholders as to how we can move forward to improve these numbers and to meet 6 basic commitments: promoting health and hydration, ensuring water quality, managing water resources for long-term sustainability, reducing our manufacturing and logistics footprint, developing sustainable packaging solutions. We're talking a lot about water today, and we could spend a whole other day talking about packaging solutions as well, because it also has a connection to water and to global climate change. And lastly, and certainly not least, being a good neighbor. And so we took a measure of our water use, and over the past 8 years, we've reduced our water usage by 9%. We have also set aggressive targets. And what we do is when we learn about a resource, whether that's a spring that's in Maine or in any other community, we work to share the knowledge that we gain with the local leaders. We've spent a great deal of science, a great deal of effort to go in to understand the resource, the water coming in, the water going out, all of the other impacts. And we share that with the communities so that they can develop the strongest possible knowledge of their own water sources. This is kind of a graphic of a typical monitoring system for a spring site, where we've got monitoring wells surrounding and at several different points around the spring site. We need to protect. We have a vested interest in producing clean water and healthy water beverages to protect the quality of the lands and quality of the water around our resources. Our company directly protects, as natural or open space, 14,000 acres around our spring sources nationally. And through a partnership with the Nature Conservancy, since 1999, have supported protection of another 426,000. Water for Nature theme that Mark was talking about a little bit earlier. Now I want to talk a little bit about also with using the water footprint in terms of production. Of any beverage you could drink, of any food product, bottled water has the lightest water use footprint. Now this chart here is actually based on data in 2005 for the industry. Right now, bottled spring water uses 1.37 gallons of water to make a gallon of packaged product. That number for soda is actually higher, I think, than the industry average is right now. Had the opportunity to testify in a hearing in Massachusetts with a colleague from Coca-Cola Enterprises, who testified that their company is down to about 1.77 gallons used for a gallon produced. And we all do that together as an industry in a lot of ways, and we'll talk about that in a minute, but I do want to at least note that. And that last column there is beer. Think of 5 gallons of water for every gallon of beer produced. And that doesn't include all of the crops and everything else that goes with that. I'm not sure what the footprint is for the cupcakes in the back of the room, but we'll be getting there very soon. I talked a little earlier, the importance of what we make and how we make it. Nestle Waters North America in 2003 had the first LEED certified food or beverage plant in the United States in Stanwood, Michigan. We now have a total of 6 plants that are certified as green buildings. All except of those 6, except 1 are silver certified, and the 6th was just in Lehigh, Pennsylvania. In Allentown has been certified as gold, which was, we just reached that just about a few months ago. And it is our commitment that any future plants we make are designed to meet this standard. And in order to meet the standard, there are probably folks here who know more about that than I do, but there's a scorecard that you need to meet several different scores on, including everything from efficient energy to your wastewater, your stormwater, and all of the ways that your community is designed. And again, this isn't about just so we can pat ourselves on the back and say we're doing a great job. It's to try and minimize the footprint of what we do. Just last year, we mapped our carbon footprint, and we found that 55% of the carbon mapping and the carbon footprint in our products comes from the bottle itself, and the PET that comes from our suppliers. And so, just like we talked earlier, Nestle focusing on agriculture because it's such a large use, because this was the largest part of our footprint, we focused on reducing the size and the weight of our bottles. And this Eco Shake is what we call it, bottle that I have here with my Nestle Pure Life is about 12.5 grams. It will be lighter at about 10.5 starting in 2010, and perhaps even lighter still after that. That's great to get it light. Perhaps at some other time, or if you have any questions on it, we can talk about some of the other things, such as finding renewable resources, finding other resources to use for the bottle, and also increasing our recycled content. Through the Nestle Environmental Management System, we'll be measuring the full life cycle impacts of our products. We'll have that information by 2011, and that goes all the way back through the value chain and through our suppliers to where it's not just source to shelf, but also end of life. We had our new hybrid delivery trucks here for a hybrid day on the hill about a month or so ago, and looking again through all of the ways that we do what we do to have that lighter footprint. Project WET, I talked a little about the Nature Conservancy. We're very active in Project WET, water education for teachers. We talked before about giving the tools to communities to better understand their water resources, to better govern them. Project WET has been a fantastic program. It is international. We most recently rolled out the program in Pakistan by providing guides for teachers and also students and their families. And as the whole beverage industry certainly uses a good deal of water, we have come together with these companies up here. I know Janine Kellner is here. I think she and I have been able to kind of escape most of these meetings because most of the not so much government affairs people in the room, these are the plant managers, these are the geologists from these companies that have come together to map again and then work on reducing the footprint, the water footprint of the beverage industry. And all these member companies, we released a report that we have realized a combined reduction of 9 billion liters of water over the last 2-year period. And so in review, global water consumption is at an all-time high. It's doubling every 20 years. We face a severe global crisis. We're a company that looks to work as much as we can locally where we are to address it and to improve, to learn, to share our knowledge with the communities, and also to work to set good water governance policy wherever we possibly can. I know there's a lot to throw at you. I thank you so very much for being here, and look forward with Mark answering your questions.